Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. So, I'm going to be doing a bloom again, but with a bit of a difference this time. I want to incorporate a few different elements into one bloom to see what happens. So, I'm going to be using some Apex UV resin from Just For You Online, which I've not tried before, but I really wanted to give it a go. I'm also going to be trying a technique that you've seen me try in pendants, but I'm going to try it in the bloom just to see what happens. And I think we could get some crazy effects here. I'm also going to be using the UV resin to create a center for the bloom. And I'm debating whether or not to go around the edges as well and try and create a bit of bubble effect, but I might leave that for the background. So what I'm planning to do is this takes about 4 ounces of resin. I'm only going to mix up 3 because I am going to want to put a back on this. And the plan is I want to have the bloom on the top using a slightly crazy technique, using washing up liquid. And I'm also going to be using washing up liquid for the bubble technique as well. So I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I think it's going to be interesting to try. And Just For You Online have sent me this resin. So I've not tried it before, but it's another UV resin. The ones I normally get, to be honest with you, just from Temu. So I'm hoping that this one's going to be a better quality one. It's from Apex. It's fast cure, no shrinkage, non-yellowing, UV, crystal clear, hard. So hopefully that's going to work for the bubble technique. I don't see why it won't. So I'm going to give that a go. I've also got a discount code for you for anything on Just For You Online as well, which is ccukresin. So if there's anything you like on there, and I'm starting to really like this Apex resin in the epoxy resin that I'm using. So I'm going to use their fast cure, I think, again for this one. Or should I? Because I want a little bit of working time, and I'm worried if I use the fast cure that I won't have enough work time. So actually, no, I'm going to use, again, I'm going to use Apex resin, but I'm not going to use the fast cure. I'm going to use the high gloss finish. In fact, no, I'm going for it. I'm going for the fast cure. So then hopefully I can get all of this done with enough time to hopefully still get a backing on as well, if I've got enough of this fast cure left, because I'm using it quite a lot at the minute. So I'm going to use the fast cure, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be fast enough to do what I want to do. But the first thing I'm going to do is just create that center, which is dead straightforward. Going to be using, as I say, the UV resin for this. And I think this is the sort of size of circle I want, but I don't want it as deep as that. I want it to be quite shallow. So I'm just going to get some bubbles ready because you're going to need that. And literally, this is just a couple of ounces of water in a cup, some washing up liquid, and I'm just going to put a drop of that in there. Next thing I'm going to do is get one of my stirring sticks and just make some bubbles. You know, this is the fun bit, so that they're ready to go when I need them. And if you've noticed, my workstation's actually reasonably clean for me today. I've managed to find some time today to actually give it a bit of a tidy around and wash those silicone mats. So this is the way that I do the bubbles for this technique. And I know most people use a straw and things like that when they want bubbles, but I deliberately do this because I want the smaller bubbles so that in that center of the bloom, they're quite small, a little bit like this effect. And that's what I'm going for. So I'm just going to mix up some bubbles so that they're ready for when I need them. And this is all I do. Shake a stick, and it gets them quite small this way, which is what I want for this. And this is just step 1. There's going to be a few steps to this bloom, but I'm hoping it works out. And I didn't want to just blob it in the mold that I'm planning on using, but there we go. So I'm just going to clean that out because I don't want a wet mold when I'm doing this. There we go. And that is the exact one that I'm going to use as well. So that was quite annoying. But all I'm going to do is open up this UV resin. And then I'm going to let you know if there's any odours or anything as well, because one thing I have found with different UV resins, Some of them smell more than others. And again, the more they smell, the more it worries me working with them, if I'm being honest with you, because you tend to think of bad odours. What chemicals are in there? That's the first thing that comes to my mind. But hopefully this one won't be too bad. And I'm hoping it's a sort of medium to thick viscosity as well, which will be suitable for doming as well. So I'll let you know. So just taking the foil off. And there we go. So that is the UV resin. And I'm just looking for the lid. And there we go, handy, comes with a nozzle. And I've also noticed different UV resins as well give different amounts of bubbles. Now, not the bubbles that we want in this case, but bubbles you don't want. So I'm just going to put a thin layer in the base of this mould. See, I've got a couple of bubbles there, but nothing major. And I think that's about the size I want for the centre. So that probably isn't even a quarter of the way full. Now, don't forget, with UV resin, you can still pop your bubbles with a torch, you know? So I've got those bubbles in the top there. Don't want those ones, which sounds a bit weird because I'm going to be trying the bubble technique. But I don't want unwanted bubbles that I haven't put in there. So I'm just going to get rid of those. There we go. That is those bubbles gone. And now, dead straightforward, I'm just going to get my light ready so it's ready to go. And if the light goes down, it's because for some reason the power bank I use, even though it's got 2 or 3 different USB slots, it doesn't like when I've got more than one thing plugged in. And I don't know why, to be honest. But let's see. Okay, that's working straight away. So just taking it away from there because I actually don't want it to cure yet. And then all I'm going to do is get some of these bubbles that we've just mixed up, these small tiny ones. And it's important here just to get the bubbles. I only want the bubbles to go on there. I don't want any water. So I just, let's say, tickle in that surface to get just bubbles. Putting those all the way across that UV resin. And then I'm going to cure it for 60 seconds. And that should be the first part done. Dead straightforward. And what I'm hoping is this creates a realistic centre for the bloom. I've tried it before, but the bloom went really wrong. So I discarded that project, if I'm being honest. So I'm hoping that this one, we get a nice bloom with a nice centre. And then I can have, hopefully, put a backing with the UV resin as well around the edges. Just to create that bubbly effect on the back as well. And I think if that comes behind the bloom, it will really make the bloom pop if I use the right chameleon powders. But as you know, anything can and probably will go wrong. Not every project works out. I'm hoping this one does though. And I might even try and turn this one into a little bowl if it works out. Because one of the wasted projects I had where, I can't remember, I don't know if you've seen the video, but where I had that flash cure, I actually found this mould makes a really nice little bowl. Just as a little trinket bowl. You could probably use it as a soap dish or something like that. But just with those petals coming in a little bit, I think that is a great little bowl. With Christmas coming up as well, you could just fill it with sweets or nuts, whatever you want, and just have it on your coffee table, you know. So actually, even though that was a failed piece, it gave me a great idea for the use of this mould. So hopefully this is now cured through both sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get some paper towel or kitchen roll and just wipe off any excess off there. And you can see it keeps that bubble effect in there, which is what I wanted. And now, to emphasise that, I think I'm going to use 2 different colours. I want my favourite, which is papaya, but I also want a little bit of gold, because I don't actually have any proper yellow micas, I don't think. I think the closest I've got is a slightly pearlescent one, actually, which I might try, which is a yellowy gold. So I'm going to try that with some papaya and with a little bit of chameleon powder mixed in as well, just to see what it makes. And don't be afraid to mix up your micas, guys. It makes your colours unique. It makes your pieces truly unique. And if you mix your own colours, nobody else in the world will have the same piece as you. And it's as simple as that. So, and that's why I love making my own colours with the micas. And it's so simple. You know, most of us buy these in packs of 30, 40, 50 different colours. You know, be creative with it. So, I'm going to use a bit of this orange papaya. And in fact, I've got this mixing cup here, which I've already used to mix up some colours. So I'm going to use that one. So there's some papaya. And again, I'm not going to need a lot because I'm just looking for enough to do that initially. So I'm happy with that. Then I'm going to put in a little bit of this yellow gold because I want it sort of yellowy orange. I think it would look nice as the centre of a flower. So again, a little bit of this gold, not too much because the gold will take over. It always does. So again, a little tiny bit of the gold in there. And you can see I'm not using a lot at all. And then I've got this goldy pinky chameleon powder where I've got a deep red. Now I'm going to use the gold one, goldy pink. And again, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of the chameleon powder in because I don't want too much of a chameleon effect in the centre. And that is my 3 micas that hopefully when I mix them together, I'll be happy with the colour and then I can just brush it on. So just mixing that around. And you can see I've got kind of a mix of those 3, and I'm not mixing it too much for this because I actually don't mind if I get different colours all the way around. So again, just getting my brush, and it's a bog standard paintbrush, getting enough mica on there to just brush it around that mould. And that should be more than enough for that little centre. Now, because I'm doing a bloom on top of this, I'm not sure whether I want to put a black layer on it or not. Now, I know the black layer is really going to make the colours pop, though. In fact, no, I'm going to. See, just changing my mind as I go. So, again, what you've got to be cautious of when you're working with UV, though, is not to do your colours too thick. Because if you do that, it won't cure. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of that UV resin in here, and literally a tiny bit, because again, I don't want this to be deep either. There we go, tiny bit like that. I think that'll be more than enough to just do me a back. And then I should have some black pigment dye, and this is a transparent one, so 1 drop will be more than enough. And then I'm just going to use my silicone tool to mix that round. And you can see it's quite a transparent black, but it should still work for what I want. So even though that's quite a dark colour, it's still transparent. So I'm just going to put this on the back to hopefully just give a thin layer to cover that up. It'll also soak up any of that mica that's still there as well, which I don't mind it mixing together. There we go. So that is that, and I'm just going to move it around to the side, and you can see I've still got mica on there. Scraping it around, trying not to scrape off those powders though, so being as gentle as I can. Just moving the resin around so I've got the piece completely covered. Like so. And then I'm going to cure it. And then we're going to demold this and see what it looks like. Just going to give it a second to hopefully level out so I get a reasonably flat base. And again, I'm hoping that this is going to cure because it is quite opaque with the amount of mica powder I used. So we will find out together. I'm just going to give it 60 seconds both sides and see what happens. And I'm going to fast forward through this, and then you can come back once it's had 60 seconds both sides. And there we go, guys. That feels cured. It seems hard. So I'm going to just demold this, and hopefully this will be the centre of that bloom. There we go. Loving the look of that. Now what I'm going to do is, just whilst it's still out of the mould, I'm just going to go around the sides and trim off any of these excess bits that I don't want before it's... So I want it to still have a circular look, like so. And I still want it to be reasonably flat as well, so that hopefully it doesn't interfere with the bloom. So there we go. And yeah, I'm really happy with that as a little bloom, as a centre anyway. So that's that part. I can now put that away. And that's all I need with the UV resin for now. But again, that resin seems to cure. It seems to be crystal clear and rock solid. So I'm happy with that. Now you could, if you wanted to, just give that a top coat as well. But for me, it's going into resin anyway, which will make it ultra shiny. So I'm not going to bother with that. And this is just an experiment. So it's just to really see how things go. And I don't know, because as I say, I've not tested this method before. But I've got my cup, and I'm going to mix up 3 ounces, because as I say, this takes 3.5 to 4 ounces of resin, this mould. So I'm going to try and leave enough for a thin backing. And again, I'm going to try and do that bubble effect, I think, for the backing. I'm going to be using the EPOXY Resin 1 Coat Fast Cure for this. And I'm just hoping I've got enough left. So I'm just going to mix up 3 ounces quickly. So I want 1.5 of the hardener, and the paper lid from the lid is stuck back to it, but I can peel that off. So 1.5 ounces, and I always put the hardener in first. I don't know why. I just find it mixes better if you do it that way. So that is 1.5, and then I'm going to put 1.5 of the resin in. And this is one of the thickest resins I've ever worked with. So I'm going to try something a little bit different with my colours for this bloom as well, which you'll see in a minute. Because I think it should be able to withstand a little bit more weight from the Micas. We'll find out. I think I've just about used, once I've done this project, I'll have just about used all of this. But I will probably be ordering some more because I really like it. Again, it's the EPOXY Resin 1 Coat Fast Cure from Just For You Online UK. So there we go, that's my resin. Now I'm just going to mix that up. And again, I'm going to do it quite slowly because I am going to put this through my bubble removal machine. And what I found is when I mix this really fast, basically it caused an awful lot of bubbles in the bubble removal machine. So you can see how slowly I'm going. And I'm just going to mix that round around about 3 minutes, I think should do. Remembering to scrape around the sides and your bottom so that you don't have any uncured pieces. So I'll come back when I've done that. Hey guys, and I'm back, and I'm just checking the temperature on this resin. We're currently at 25 degrees, but you only have a 20-minute working time with this fast cure. So just be conscious of that when you're working with it. So I'm just going to get my colours ready, and I'm not going to need a lot here, I don't think, because well, I don't think I'm going to need a lot for the one bloom. So I'm using this almost neon blue for one of the colours. Again, not too much because I'm not going to have a lot of resin to actually mix my colours. Once I put sort of 2 ounces in there, it's going to be kind of 1 ounce split between these 3 cups. But I'm actually going to try pouring as well, straight from the cups, because I haven't tried that yet, and I want to see if I can get it. And this is almost a really bright neon pink. And what you'll see is with these 2 colours, I'm actually going to mix. It's not like me. And what I'm going to do is put a bit of my metallic silver in with the blue. And not a lot, just enough to hopefully make it look a little bit different. So that's enough of that. And then in the pink, I'm going to put a tiny bit of my metallic gold. And we'll see what colours that makes, you know. You never know until you experiment. And literally just a tiny bit of the gold, because I don't want it to overtake the pink, but I just think it'll be an interesting colour when it's mixed, hopefully. And then for my white, I'm going to be using a combination of 3. So I'm going to try and get about half a drop of ocean white, if I can, in there, ready. That's it. That'll do. Come on, off you come. Half a drop. And that's all I'll need. So that is my ocean white. Then I'm going to put in, once I pour the resin in, probably 2 or 3 drops of my sinker white to see if that encourages it to spread just a tiny bit more. But on the end of my stick, I'm going to use a bit of this metallic white as well. Just the tiniest of bits. Literally just mixing it around and literally scraping absolutely everything off the stick apart from what's left on it. So that is all I'm going to use. Tiniest bit of that in this as well. Just because I want to see what mixing it with the ocean white has as an effect, because it comes out with a really great effect on its own. But I just wanted to see if this is going to be any different. Now I have noticed with the fast cure resin as well, when you put it through your bubble removal machine, it goes almost cloudy with lots of mini micro bubbles. But what you find is when it cures, they all go. So I don't know if that's because it's a different type of resin or why, to be honest with you. But I've used 2 different fast cure resins now, and they both have the same effect, where once it's gone through the bubble removal machine, it almost goes sort of a little bit cloudy. But once it clears, it does go crystal clear. So it's just, I don't know, I think it's just something to do with the properties of a fast cure resin. There we go, and the surface is already at 28.9. I'm going to try and get it to about 32 and then go in, I think, and mix these colours, then pour it in the rest of the mould, then try and pipe these designs from the cup, which will be exciting. As I say, it's the first time I've tried this. Normally I use the piping bags to give me a bit more control, but I'm going to risk it today. I'm feeling a little bit adventurous, and I just wanted to see if I can do it straight from the cups, which will save me an awful lot of piping bags. And with it being this fast cure resin, I think it can actually withstand a little bit more sort of weight in the micas than a more medium viscosity or a low viscosity resin would. So again, just making sure my mould is crystal clear, because I think a little bit of mica powder went on it. And I'm going to try and turn this into a bowl. Now it cures within 2 hours, so I'm going to have to time this right, where literally I think within an hour and a half, come back and then put it in that bowl. But we will see. So it's up to 25 on the base, 28 on the top. And I still want it to get sort of 32, I think I want to go at with this one, just to give it enough time. Because if you wait for 35 or 38 with a fast cure resin, it's already pretty much curing and you won't get that bloom effect. So anywhere between 31 and 32 is what you should aim for with a fast cure resin. So I'm told. We will see. I'm probably going to end up with a huge blobby mess now, and then it shows that I'm wrong. So it's 28.1 now on the surface. And let me know what you think, guys, in comments. Let me know what colours you think I'm going to get from mixing this pink and gold, this blue and silver, and those 3 different whites. It's going to be interesting. As I say, I've never tried it, but I like to try new things. Just to see what happens, you know. And as I say, the plan is this is going to go in the centre and be the centre of my bloom, which I think looks great. And again, it's just something different, which you don't see in a lot of blooms. And I think for me, it looks almost natural. That bubble effect looks almost natural as a centre. 28.3. And 26 on the base. So it's starting to warm up now, which is great. And then once it cures you see, if I want to get the bubble effect on the back, I'm not going to be able to do that and get it in a bowl, because I think what will happen is it will fully cure and it won't bend. So for this project, I'm not going to make it into a bowl. I'm just going to make it into a nice, I don't know, tray, I suppose you call it, or a large coaster, because I want to see if this bloom comes in a little bit, what the bubble effect will look like popping out on the outside underneath. So we'll see. Because I do love that bubble technique, just with washing up liquid and UV resin. I think it's a great technique. And I haven't invented it, by the way, guys. It's been around for years. It's just something that I like doing. A lot of people do a bigger bubble technique on things like coasters. And what they do with that is they use a straw and actually blow bigger bubbles. And it's exactly the same technique, but they just blow bigger bubbles. I like the small ones for things like this because I think it looks more natural. But I'm watching this like a hawk, because this is also, because it's a fast cure resin, it's if you go back and have a look at my previous videos, this is the first resin that I actually got a flash cure with as well. And I think it is because it's a fast cure and I wasn't used to it going up so quickly. And I've just given this a bit of a trim around the edge, because again, for me, it was a little bit too deep. So I just wanted it to be still round, but a little bit, tiny bit smaller. And I think that should work in the center. So there we go. 29.2, we're almost there. So literally, I think in 30 seconds, that's going to hit 30, 31, and then we're going to go for it. Because the thing to remember with this fast cure resin as well is you've normally got 40-minute working time with most resins, but with fast cure, you've only got about 20 minutes to get it all in and get your design put in and everything. So just remember that if you're working with fast cure resin, guys, you've got to be aware you've got less working time. I'm just going to get a clean stick ready as well, just to push the resin out, because I'm going to put quite a thin layer on, I think. But again, do me a favour, guys, if it's your first time to the channel, or if you're a regular viewer, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think in comments. Let me know if you're liking the content or not. Again, I had somebody saying, am I copying Glitz and Glamour? And I'd never heard of that channel before yesterday in comments. But it seems that she uses the same video editing software I do and picks some of the same tracks. So she's got very good taste in music. But yeah, it's an interesting world, YouTube, and obviously when there's so many creators out there, we all do very similar things at times, and I think that's part of the fun. You know, we all learn from each other, we all try different things, and if something works for one, we all probably have a go and try it, which I think is one of the exciting things. We like to share the knowledge in the community. It's not just about this person came up with this or this person came up with that. So we're at 30 degrees pretty much. I'm going to start. In fact, it's not very warm, so I'm not. I keep questioning the temperatures, because that is the most crucial thing with blooms, is your temperature. If you get your temperature right, the rest will happen. But again, with the fact you've only got 20 minutes working time with a fast cure resin, I think you've got less time to actually get your bloom in and your design in for it to actually work as well. So I don't know. Julie from Pouring Your Heart Out, if you're watching, let me know how you found it, because I know you've moved on to 4-hour fast cure. I think you're using Let's Resins at the minute. Have you found that you have to be a lot quicker than you used to? 28 degrees on the bottom, 31 on the top. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to start mixing my colours. I don't want to wait any longer. I'm going to probably not even a third of the way up. There we go. That'll be my white, because I want to make sure I've got enough to still cover the surface. That'll be my pinky gold. And this will be my bluey silver. The official colours. And I just want to make sure I've got enough white to go around. There we go. So I'm happy with that. And then I'm just going to check my mould again, because I've just noticed something has floated into it. Get that out. And that's almost perfect, actually. I'm almost left with exactly 2 ounces. So I've got 1 ounce in all of those cups, and then I've got 2 ounces in here. So I'm hoping 2 ounces will give me enough of a layer to get this blooming. We will find out. Should be enough. So the 2 ounces should give me enough of a layer. And again, it looks really bubbly at the minute, but I am going to get the big bubbles out, and the rest, I promise you, when it cures, you won't see them. They'll be completely gone. So I've got enough there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scrape any extra out into my colours, because if I get any spare resin, you know me, I will use it in a separate side mould. There we go. So that is the rest, pretty much all of that resin now, but I'm just conscious of the working time with this. So that is that. Next thing I'm going to do is try and get rid of those bigger bubbles. So again, just using my dotting tool, which has vanished. I've moved my whole workstation around today, so I'm struggling to find where things are, because I wanted it to get a bit tidier. And look at this, I'm making a mess already, but there we go. Just going to tease these bigger bubbles up to the surface, like so, going around the edges of all of these petals as well, because that's where your bubbles will want to hide. And then literally flicking them up to the surface, any of the bigger ones, like so. And it's really strange working with this resin, because once it's, as I say, once it's gone through a bubble removal machine, it almost looks like there's loads of bubbles in there, but then they miraculously just disappear when it cures. So I don't know, I think it's the different consistency of the resin from what I'm used to, and it's just getting used to it. So here we go. Just going to go around it with my torch, just to get rid of those bigger ones, like so. And again, just be conscious to try and stay away from your edges. But I think that's most of them. In fact, there's one more just there, which I don't want in there. And again, just making sure it's going all the way around as well. My silicone underneath seems to be bubbling a little bit up, and that's what's bringing that bit up. So actually, I'm just going to move it slightly across. See that bubble there? Go away, bubble. So there we go. That's that. Again, just going to go around, and hopefully we won't get any bubbles. Now I'm going to try and get my centre reasonably central, he says. Now, the problem I've got here is I don't know if I've got a deep enough layer to fully cover that, and I tried to do it quite thin. But I am going to put a backing on this anyway, so it shouldn't matter in the finished piece. I'm just going to try and make sure it's covered at least in resin. Again, just using the rest of my pot, scraping it around like so, and making sure that it's at least covered. Because actually, if the petals only come into this centre, I'll be quite happy about that, because then when the backing's on, you won't be able to see. So there's that. That is my centre. Hopefully it's reasonably central, and it might actually stop any blobbing around it, so I'm quite happy about that. Next, for my white, and again, just stirring it around. Loving that as a white, hopefully. Now, what you tend to find with this mould as well is you tend to get more blooming inside these actual petals. So I'm hoping by adding that metallic to these micas that it will still do enough. Ooh, and this is going a really strange colour. Wow. It's like a pinky dark gold. Look at that. I think I might add a bit more of the pink to that. Well, what I might do is add a drop of alcohol ink as well, just to give it again, a slightly more pinky tone. So let's add a drop of that. I'm going to add a drop of my Cinca White as well. Don't know why. Just my gut's telling me to do it, so that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't add any to this either, so there we go. That's the 3 drops there. But again, I am conscious of time here, so I'm not going to waste too much time. I just wanted a more pinkish tone on that gold, which I haven't really got, but it'd be interesting to see how it blooms, because we know it's got that pink mica in there as well as the gold. But you see what I mean about gold overtaking? It really does. And next, this silver and blue. Hopefully we don't have the same effect. There we go. So this is still looking quite blue. I'm happy about that. But remember, when you're mixing your micas, really scrape around the edges, because that's where it will stay, and then you'll get little pockets of mica. So there we go. That is my my colours mixed. Happy with those. And I think I'm just going to do, initially, I want to go, just to get used to going around with the pot, to be honest with you. But I'm just going to go around these petals first with my two colours. So again, just squeezing that pot. And I want a nice controlled, slow pour here. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. I'm going to try and get as close to this mould as I can. There we go. Without actually touching it, because I don't want to touch the mould. And I want it to be reasonably even, if I can. There we go. So that's my first one in. Now I'm going to go in with the goldy pink. And again, guys, I don't know if this is going to work or not. It's an experiment for me. Again, trying to get the layers reasonably equal. And trying not to really go over them. And pouring from a cup is much more difficult than it actually looks. There we go. And then I'm going to try and get my spiral effect going around for the white. Okay, we're not getting a proper spiral. This is going to take some practice pouring from this cup. And again, I'm not not confident that this is even going to bloom, guys. But it's my first time doing it this way, so you know what, have fun. That's what I say. And then I'm just going to sort out those two big blobby bits. And then I'm going to carry on going round in spirals, hopefully, with the other two colours. There we go. So if you get any bits that you think are going to blob, just pull them to one side, pull them across, and hopefully it'll prevent it blobbing. And so we're going to go for a random petal effect now. I wish I could say it was planned, but it was mainly down to my pouring from a pot for the first time. So now I'm going to go back around with the blue. And again, I want an even thinner line, probably the same sort of thickness as the white that I've got at the minute. And as you can see, these ones are coming out a little bit thicker. But as I say, it's going to be interesting just to see what effect, if any, I get from this. And I'm going to do a few circles as well, because why not? And this is the most random petal pattern you've probably ever seen. And it's the most random pattern that I've ever done. So it'll be interesting when we demold, that is for sure. So that's that one. And then just going to repeat the same process with this pinky gold. I definitely prefer piping bags. That's one thing I know after this experiment, is I definitely prefer working with piping bags in my blooms. I think it gives you a lot more control over your design, over your piece, and your overall look. But I don't know, I'm still hopeful somehow that we will get some kind of effect with this. Don't know. Let me know in comments, guys. Do you think I'm going to get anything out of this? Or do you think I'm just going to get a very uneven, blobby mess? So I'm going to do what I usually do, which is come in and pull those petals in to that centre. Like so. And I don't know, I'm still hopeful with this, guys. If it blooms, I still think it's going to be a really pretty piece. I don't think I'm going to have any, there's going to be any point in me putting in the bubble technique on the back though. Because for me, I think that if this blooms properly, it'll completely cover it. And do I pull the tips out? Maybe just the top ones. So maybe just these ones here. Pull these out to the edge. And this is going to be intriguing. And the great thing is, because I'm using the fast cure resin, I should be able to know in about 2 hours. But it's definitely going to be different. So yeah, just going to torch it now to get rid of any bubbles. I also find that this just encourages that blooming effect as well. As you can see, that centre's still sticking out a little bit. But I don't know, you know, guys, I think this is going to do something, and I think it's going to look really nice. And I don't know why, because at the minute, it doesn't look great. And it wasn't how I planned it. It's just how it came out of the pots, because it's my first time using these pots rather than actually using my piping bags. So just going to pour this extra resin that I've got on the side into this dragon mold, because I'm loving the way my drip dragons are turning out at the moment. And again, no particular order with this. What I think the best effects are those that are really random. So I just literally splosh it around everywhere. And I think the most random effects come out with the best effects. And obviously the resin will settle where it wants at the end. It'll do whatever it wants to do, go wherever it wants to go in these drip projects, and that's what creates a really cool effect. But what I do like to do is just make sure that you've got some different colours around the sides, so that if you're filling it up mainly with whites or blacks and things like that, you've still got a bit of interest around the other parts of the mould. So that is pretty much all of that. But it is starting to bloom, guys, so we might get something from this. What? I don't know. But again, it's looking like it's doing something, so all is not lost. But again, let me know what you think in comments, guys. Do you think this is going to work or not? I think it could either be one of my favourites or a blobby mess. It's going to be one of the two. I'm pretty confident with that. There we go. And this is nicely starting off this new drip dragon. But I'm loving how these are turning out as well at the minute, these drip dragons. And it's just using that waste that you normally would either waste, maybe pour it into a pendant if you're a bit adventurous. But as I say, I'm loving the way they're turning out. Just such a cool effect. And all it is that excess resin you've got literally dripping it all over your moulds. That's why I'm calling it a drip dragon. Like so. And then as it fills, you get lots of different colours and shades and stuff in there, depending on what projects you're doing. So there we go. So I am going to come back in about, 2 hours, because that's what it says it should cure. And I'm going to put a back on this, because I want to see what this is going to look like. Hey guys, and I'm back, and it's about 2 hours later, and actually this is cured to touch. Still a little bit sticky, but I think I'll be okay to pour the back on. So this stuff cures within like 2.5 hours, which is amazing. Now the only thing I'm disappointed at a little bit looking at this bloom is I think the centre somehow has shifted. If you can see, it was dead central, but that's too cured now, I can't move it. But it almost looks like it's moved slightly to the side. Again, I don't know why, but there we go. All I've done is I've mixed up 60 ml for this fast cure again, put some black mica in, and then I've got this pinkish chameleon powder as well. And I'm just going to mix that into the resin, pour it over to give us a nice dark backing, but I always like to just throw a bit of chameleon in with the black. Doesn't make a massive impact, but you just get little sparkles of colour going through it, which I think just adds an extra bit of interest to it. And what I'm going to do as well is I've got some cat's eye alcohol ink that I made in a previous video as well. So I've got it mixed up, and look at the shimmer in that. It's just all different cat's eye colours. So again, I'm going to put a few drops of that in here as well, just because why not? I've got probably 6 different micas, 2 metallics. I've got ocean white pigment in here. I've got metallic white pigment in here. I've now got, what else did I put in? Some white sinker. Now I've got cat's eye alcohol ink and chameleon powder and black mica, all with the bubble technique in the middle as well. So I've literally tried to fit as much as I could in this one bloom, I think. But just making sure it's mixed around correctly. Again, I'm not putting this through my bubble removal machine simply because with the dark opaque ones you don't need to. And you know what? I've got my, let's add some more to it. I've got my chameleon alcohol inks as well. So I'm going to put a few drops of that in here as well, just to add some more effect to it. And I think that's pretty much everything that I can add then. But I've got 3 different ones. So again, I'm going to put 3 different chameleon alcohol inks in here. This is genuinely feel like a mad scientist in this project. Putting absolutely everything into the one project. But yeah, I think it will give us an interesting result. There we go, 1 more drop of that, just for good measure. And here we go. So although it wasn't exactly how I planned it, and you see those chameleon alcohol inks on the top, look amazing. Hopefully they'll just come through to the top of this black. Although it hasn't gone exactly the way that I planned, I still think we're going to get a very interesting bloom here. And what I am going to do is go back and do what I originally planned with 1-to-1 normal cure epoxy. And what I was going to try and do is, you've probably seen my video where I work with pendants, and I did one of Daniel Cooper's techniques, which is putting the washing up liquid and the silicone oil on alcohol inks and watching that spread. And I just thought it'd be cool to see what would happen if I did that in a bloom and then put the petals in. So I am going to do that in another project. But for this one, as I say, I'm going to get this backing on. I've done 60 mil. That should hopefully give me enough to cover it, fill it, and give me a nice flat surface so that this bit isn't sticking out anymore. And And I'm hoping I get a really nice piece. I'm loving the way the metallics look on the back though now. And I always wonder at this point whether I should just leave it or put a clear coat on. But I'm going to do it because I've mixed up the resin now. And literally starting in the centre. And then I'm just going to go around the sides till I get a nice even layer. And I think 60mm should be perfect to just fill this mould nicely. And I love the effect you get from Micas. They're just stunning, just on their own. So I do want this to be quite full. So I'm just going around it again. And that way I should get a nice flat back. You shouldn't be able to see the back of that UV resin centre that I made popping out or anything like that. And if you dome them, you don't get that sharp edge. So I think it can probably take a little bit more. And actually, I can't see many of the chameleon powders or the inks popping through yet. Oh, I can now, actually, in a slightly different light. So, can I fit a few more drops in? I think I can. And I judged it almost perfectly, I think. 60mm was about perfect. So, great thing with these silicone molds is as well, is cups is, literally, I can let this cure and then just peel it out, but I'm not going to do that because I've got my dragon mold here. So I'm just going to pour the rest into this dragon mold, and then I'm going to torch the back of that bloom just to get rid of any bubbles. Now, do I give it a swirl as well? I might as well. But let's get rid of the bubbles first. So all of those bubbles should now be gone. And I actually love popping bubbles. It's one of my favourite things to do with resin. Is just get rid of those surface bubbles. So there we go. Happy with that. And just in case it does leave a pattern, I do like to do a swirl, even with standard micas, because sometimes if you get it in the right light, you get a really cool pattern. So I'm just going to go around the edge. Again, being careful not to touch the bottom mould. Just swirling it around a little bit. I don't know if this will leave any pattern or not, but since I'm here, I've got time. Literally just going around the edge, swirling it a little bit to see if that will create a pattern. And then I'm going to do a swirl in the centre. In fact, I might do a little wispy effect going into the centre from each of these. Just a little turn like that. Again, I don't think this will leave this pattern in, but you never know. So for the sake of 2 minutes of just trying to put it in, you might as well. And then I can just see there being the centre. So I'm just going to swirl it around a little bit, like so. In case it leaves any pattern. I like to almost leave a little eye on the back with a little swirl. And I think that will do. And then that's it. Just going to leave that to cure now. Just making sure, looking at it from the side, and that's perfectly level. So I'm happy with that. And then, with it being the fast cure, it'll actually be cured enough to demold in a couple of hours. But it's nearly midnight now, so I am just going to get some sleep. And then I can demold this in the morning. So I will see you, and hopefully a gorgeous bloom in the morning. Morning, guys, and it is the next day, and this is solid as a rock. I could have probably demolded it hours ago. So, on the back, just a lovely shimmer. Occasionally in certain lights, you get the bit of glimmer coming through from those cat's eyes and that glitter, as well as the black mica effect. So I'm really hoping we've got a nice bloom here. I don't know. As I say, it looked great on the back before I put the backing on, and it looked like it had almost fully closed. So I'm hopeful, but you never know until you flip it around. And that's one of the things I actually quite like about these blooms is I've had some that have been really successful, some that haven't. And And I think it's all part of the learning curve. And I don't think even the best artists out there will get it right every time. So if you get a few fails, don't worry about it. Just persist, carry on until you get it right. So, mould is off. A little bit around the edges. And I can go around that with my deburring tool anyway, just to get rid of those little tiny bits there. But again, love that back. And here we go. The moment of truth. Was putting all those different micas and different whites in worth it? Let's have a look. Wow. A little bit heavy in certain areas, but it hasn't blobbed, which I'm quite happy about. And it's very different, you know, and that's what I always try and do, is find something that's a little bit different. I love that center. And I love the way the colours have kind of intermixed, but yet still stayed separate. Yeah, I think I was a little bit heavy with that goldish colour. But it still kept petal shapes. So it's different to my typical bloom, and I love the shimmer that you get. But let me know in comments, guys, what do you think? Has this one been a success? Do you like it? It's definitely different, and I think part of it was that piping. It went a little bit all over the place because it was my first time piping directly from the cups, but I do love the centre on it. I think that's the standout piece for me. So I think in future blooms I'm going to be doing that again, because I think for me it looks really natural, and that looks like a flower, you know, which is the whole point. But if you've liked it, do me a favour, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.